From humble beginnings 30 years ago, Daytech is now the largest communications technology solutions and services provider in PNG. We have intensified our solution and service offering with sound business practices and a strong affiliation with some of the largest technology providers in the world. Daytech does not only strive towards supplying goods with total customer satisfaction, but we innovate and provide value-added services. Daytech, innovative solutions, valued services.
Now, the point of this session is that although this is a Papua New Guinea investment conference, many of the people that attend have interests elsewhere in the region or could potentially have interests in the region. And I think we're going to hear that, if anything, commercial ties within the Pacific Island region, including PNG, are actually becoming closer all the time. So I'm really delighted today at the three expert speakers that we've got to cover the Pacific Islands. We have got the CEO of Investment Fiji, Kamal Chetty, who is very kindly flown from Fiji to talk to you this morning. We also have the Governor of the Central Bank of the Solomon Islands, Dr. Luke Forau. And finally, we have the, I would say brand new, at least a few months into the role, Queensland Trade Commissioner to the Pacific, who is Leata Alaimoana. I should have checked that beforehand, sorry. So we're going to keep this informal on a Q&A format. So what we will do, first of all, though, is Kamal's team very kindly provided a very nice little video giving us an update on Fiji. So we will run that first. And in case you were at this session last year, I will assure you it has been updated since last year, so you will not be seeing a repeat. So if we could just run that video first of all, please.
Spectacular place we've ever shot Survivor.
Thank you very much. Kamal, I know that economically, Fiji's economy is going through a very healthy rebound at the moment after the challenges of COVID. But I also sense after the very successful elections that were held at the end of last year that there's a real mood of optimism in the country. What's your assessment of sentiment in Fiji at the moment?
Thank you. First of all, thank you very much for inviting us. And you know, it's indeed an honor to come and be part of this event. And we at Investment Fiji believe in this region. And I think we have great potential if we work together as a region. So that's one of the reasons I made sure that we're here and talk about Fiji, and not generally Fiji, but overall as a region, what we can do. With Fiji, obviously, we were impacted after COVID, or during the COVID. Our economy really went down, but the recovery after that has been phenomenal. In fact, the economy grew at about 18.6% last year, 8% projected this year, and it continues to look very good for us. And most of that specifically has been because of our tourism industry. And later on, I'll talk about how we're diversifying the tourism industry. In terms of investment recovery, has been really well. If you look at the consumption activity in the country, the construction activities, also private sector borrowing, all those things are looking very positive. But obviously, a lot of things have started to do well after elections. Elections, I think, was an important stability for the investors. But then with the stability also, I think some of the new initiatives that the government started were very important. One where I see was very important was listening to the private sector, ensuring that the policies they do is balanced and it takes into account private sector. So one of the things the government did was they had the economic summit where they brought in the private sector and different players of the economy. They also looked at an investment facilitation committee where they fast-track some of these investment processes. And in fact, the other thing they also looked at is, look at agencies like us and now changed our role around. So, we started this change, and because usually when we go out and promote investment, sometimes in the Pacific, we are seen as a regulator of investment. But Fiji, we took that leap and we changed that, and you'll see the number of leads that are coming into through the systems is very good. People talking to us has improved. So I think those changes has led to what we see is, I call it optimism in the economy. And a lot of optimism is going to realize very soon. And some of them have already started.
Well, let's talk about tourism then. It is Fiji's tourism sector is the envy of the Pacific. But your job is to promote new investment, and as you said, you're now free to do that wholeheartedly. So what is the master plan for the next phase of Fiji's tourism industry? Because I imagine there's some people in this room who might be able to play a role in that.
Yeah. So one of the reasons Fiji has really recovered well after COVID has been the tourism growth. And there's some critical elements in it that has really played well for Fiji. If you go to Fiji currently, you can't find a room. Very difficult. We're booked out. So there is a demand for 5,000 new rooms in the economy. So that's an opportunity we're trying to promote. But I think critically important for Fiji was its national airline, which played a very important role in bringing us back. Not only bringing us back, but also opening new markets for the tourism industry. There is also a balance that tourism industry has found out. So if you look at tourism industry plan, we will grow our industry to $3 billion industry. But we're not looking at being a mass industry. We're looking at how do we get return out of this industry. And I think you've also looked at big detail on, so people talked about some leakage factors about the economy. So if you look at currently, a lot of our institutional investors, including FNPF, a lot of their investment are in the tourism industry. And we don't see that leakage factor a big issue for the country because we own a lot of assets and we work around it. And within tourism sector, there is a bit of diversification in that sector we've seen. So now medical tourism is looked at very seriously. Sports tourism is looked at very seriously. The government is currently just approved plan to move a lot of tourism activities to another island, which is Vanua level. So everything is concentrated around Nandi to look at how can we move tourism industry to another island. And that benefit can go to them. So there's plans around that. And there is also, there is a lot of work that are going around in tourism industry, for example, in the airport. So the airport, guys are telling me there is an opportunity for $1 billion construction work to happen because we are not to cater for that. So Fiji, the plan is basically we won't become a large mass, tourism destination, but where we can get more value for tourism, where people can enjoy an experience and get that value, and that value should go to the people, and they should enjoy the return of the tourism industry.
What about other sectors? Fiji also has a reputation as a back office hub. So what's the latest on that sector and what are the plans for it?
So I'll talk about some of the conversations we're having, obviously, with government and within our organization. One is the tourism sector, the rebound. The opportunities out of that rebound is quite huge. And we're trying to get, investment projects in. We've got few rooms that are coming up, but we're not still able to cater for it. So we don't want to, for tourism specific, we don't want to, market ourselves out of the market by being a high price destination. So we have to really look at how do we bring that opportunity into realization. So we're working hard. The other conversation we have is around diversification of the economy. How can we diversify the economy? And one of the sectors that has really done well for Fiji during COVID, in fact, is outsourcing. Yeah. And when we talk about outsourcing, a lot of people talk about, just call centers. Yeah. But we don't talk about that. We talk about knowledge process outsourcing, accounting services, financial services. That's where you get a lot of return for your, for that industry. So in Fiji, the current opportunity is we can't find real estate for that sector. So we're looking for investors that can supply real estate within the BPO sector. I'll tell you an example. So I visited a company 9 months ago. They had 400 people. And I visited them before coming here. They've got 1,200 people. And they've just got a client, Hawaiian Airlines, coming to Fiji. Yep. They have their whole center to be set up. So that industry has done very well. And the reason is, there's few reasons. One is our time zone. The literacy rate has been very good. Also the language has been very good. And as I went to those companies, obviously there's challenges like people. We've got a lot of people moving out of Fiji, but we've got a lot of people also coming in. So some of the people I met, they were from Angola, working in Fiji. So as far as Africa and coming and working. So that sector will continue to grow, and that's our diversification strategy. Obviously there's challenges, but I think we'll navigate through it. The other sector in terms of diversification that has opportunity is agriculture. We are looking at really to see what can we do to really promote agriculture and manufacturing. So what we've seen in Fiji is obviously currently there's a shift in how investors think. So before it was about just in time. Now it has moved to just in case something goes wrong. Okay. So we're trying to identify investment projects or manufacturing projects where they're looking at diversifying their supply chain and how can Fiji come into that. And that's in fact also, if you go back to the outsourcing sector, obviously Fiji won't compete at a global mass stage. We'll compete as a backup facility. So that's where Fiji comes in. So a lot of these centers have large centers in Philippines and India, but Fiji has come in as their risk diversification strategy. So that's an opportunity. The other one that we have a lot of conversation is around sustainability. So I think with the new government, there's a lot of thinking around sustainability. We can bring a lot of investment, but how sustainable is it for the economy? Is it really helping us? So around green energy, green technology, if you look at Fiji's sector around energy, we still are not there. We're 50% renewable. We also have the transportation sector, which is hugely reliant on fuel. So we're looking at how can we really improve that. So sustainability is an important theme. I think there's a lot of opportunities around that. And the last one is around technology. We can grow as a country, but we have a lot of challenges, including labor. So how can technology play an important role in that growth? So as part of our strategy, we're looking at solutions that technology can bring in, including ICT solutions, solutions for labor, solutions for different sectors. How can we become more efficient as a country using technology? And how can our people use that technology, so our education systems and everything. So that's in a nutshell some of the opportunities that we see in the economy.
Wonderful, thank you. The last topic I'd like to cover is Fiji's relationship with Papua New Guinea. I think when I first started working in this region about 20 years ago, there really weren't great ties between Fiji and Papua New Guinea, unlike between Fiji and the Solomons, which have, obviously had a long-standing, very close relationship. And yet that's really starting to change. So could you, how would you characterize that relationship at the moment, and where do you think the next, opportunities are for future, two-way cooperation between the two countries?
The first statement, as I made, was, it's very, I think the region has a lot of opportunity. There is a lot of opportunities within the region that we can work together. Fiji and PNG has, we being some big players in the region, it's very important for us to work together. And if you look at the government that has come in, one of the first activities they did was bring the region together. And we believe in regionalism, and I think that was a very important move from us, and see how we can work together as a region on our common challenges. So as part of that, for us, our role is, to see how can we increase the investment and trade relationship between the two nations. We already have a number of Fijian companies that are investing, and you see some of them that are here investing in PNG. Yeah. And we have the other way around. We have a lot of investment in financial sector, tourism sector. I'm talking to a number of PNG companies that are looking at investing in Fiji, taking advantage of all these opportunities. But I think we can further enhance that into 3 spaces that I think is potential. One is around institutional investment space. We have got some big institutional investors both in PNG and Fiji. They can collaborate and do better. I think resource owner and landowners, working together. We've got a number of resource owners and landowners that has got capital, and PNG has got it. How can we bring them together and work together? And in terms of trade, I think maybe maximizing the use of MSG. See how MSG, so the trade agreement, how can we use that, get a benefit for both the countries, because we have an existing arrangement that we can maybe enhance. So those are the areas maybe we can develop further. But you'll see in terms of Fiji, I think we'll be engaging more with PNG and see how we can really bring a lot of investment on both countries.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Kamal. We will move swiftly on to the Solomon Islands, and if we could load, as a central banker, of course, Dr. Forau needs to have a few slides and a few charts, so if we could load that presentation, please, so that we're ready to go on that. That's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Forau. We really appreciate you making the effort to travel here. To start with, obviously, I think the Solomon Islands has also had a particularly tough 2 or 3 years with COVID and its aftermath. But I think from what I've read, just in the last few months, there are signs that the economy's turned the corner. So, what are business conditions like in the Solomon Islands at the moment?
Thank you, Rob. First of all, let me thank you for inviting me to participate in this forum. It's been an honor to be here. Of course, Solomon Islands and PNG have similar conditions, environmental conditions. So first up, I'll just briefly perhaps give a brief update of the Solomon Islands economy. But doing that, let me step back 2 or 3 years back during the COVID period. Solomon Islands has been really affected by the COVID, like any other economy. We were just about on the recovery mode by 2021, and then we had our internal riot that pushed back the economy into a recession again. And when we were just about to come out from the riot effect, in 2022, we had this community transmission of this pandemic, and also pushed back the economy. So in the last three years, the economy has been on contraction. This year, we are looking at the positive prospect, recovery mode, and we are looking at something around 2.4% growth. At the same time, inflation has also eased after peaking at around 9.5% since last year. The latest figure we have by May this year is 5.5, and we are projecting that to come down below our desired level. Against the background of this, the main sources of growth where we're looking at coming from in terms for this year are mainly in the mineral sector, manufacturing, hotel and retail sectors. The other sectors, as you all know, that logging is our mainstay, but we have seen that it has started to come down, and we are not counting that as our major sources of growth going forward. The government is looking at other areas for new sources of growth. In terms of the fiscal balance, up to June of this year, the government incurred a fiscal deficit of around 4% of GDP. Yeah, in terms of our external position, the current account is still in the negative zone, but the deficit is improving. Despite that, our foreign reserve is still at a comfortable level of about 10 months of import cover. Okay. That's basically on the macroeconomic conditions.
Fantastic. Of course, as you might have read, if you've read the current edition of our Paradise in-Flight magazine, which is available outside, the Solomon Islands is hosting the Pacific Games in November this year. And I think, you know, there's no doubt that should give, well, is already giving the country a bit of an adrenaline shot, I guess. Exactly what impact is that having on the country?
Yeah, at the moment, most of the people in Honiara are in positive hype, looking towards or forward for these Pacific Games. These are some of the photos. By the way, I don't own these photos. I copied from the internet. So, yeah, but these are some of the photos of the facilities that's going on. I think the good thing about this one, according to the government, is that it will unite Solomon Islanders. Yeah. Most people from the provinces will be coming over to Honiara to watch the game, and that really will give a kind of sense of, I think it's about time to call ourselves as Solomon Islanders than from the Western Province or from Tuamotu Province like that. So seeing our neighbors coming from other Pacific Islands, it really gives a sense of belonging, being a Solomon Islander. Yeah. I think that's one great advantage of that. Apart from that, post-Pacific Games, I think the facilities itself can be used for other purposes that can also generate its own revenue to maintain its upkeep. That we are receiving assistance from PNG, thanks to Papua New Guinea, on how to generate income post-game. So, yeah, we are currently, there are a couple of people from PNG, I think, looking after the similar facilities when the Pacific Games was held there. So, yeah, that's really a boost for that. The other, of course, that also gave us an opportunity to host major events, international events to the Solomons, which should give us a boost in terms of image and, of course, income. On the flip side of it, the national government has given priority to the facility, to the Pacific Games. That kind of draw attention from other major priorities like economic recovery. I think that's the main concern here. So it draws out, including resources that were supposed to be allocated to other ministries like the productive ministries. It draws out resources, including financial resources from there. So the focus is more on the Pacific Games. Yep. And that's somehow dented our projection. 2.4 was revised down just recently. It was supposed to be close to 3%. But since the reallocation of some of these resources to Pacific Games, we revised it downwards. But overall, I think everyone is looking forward for the games.
Well, good luck with it, and we hope it goes really well. Well, let's move to some of those other priorities. You did mention at the beginning that mining was an important sector, particularly with the the scaling back of the importance of logging. I believe the Goldridge mine is productive at the moment, so could you give us an update on that, because I think it's an important source of foreign exchange for the country.
Yeah, so Goldridge Mining is so far the only mining company, well, in terms of scale, the largest company currently operating in the Solomons. We have a couple of prospecting companies currently on the ground doing prospecting, but this Goldridge mine just started production late last year, and they've started exporting early this year. And we've seen a big jump in terms of export proceeds, so it's going to be one of the major sources of growth going forward. One concern just around here is on the governance issue in terms of legislation, which the government is currently addressing by reviewing the mining legislation that should address the governance side of it.
So is that review good news for investors?
It's supposed to be a win-win situation for all in that regard. Apart from the mining, we also have some big ticket items that are currently happening, like the hydro project. That's a PPP arrangement. It's currently under construction at the moment, so it should be ready by 2 to 3 years' time.
That's Tina River.
That's Tina River.
Top left, and that's, I believe, the country's first ever private-public partnership.
That's the first ever, and there are a couple more coming, like the cannery, fish cannery. That's another project supported by most donors, in fact. And the Tina River hydro is also supported by many donors, including Australia.
Yep. All right, thank you. And just looking ahead then, sorry, I think we just lost the slide there. Looking ahead, let's try that again. That's it. Just looking ahead, where do you see the best opportunities for the international business community to get involved in the Solomons in the near future?
So currently, in terms of PNG Solomons relationship in terms of investment, these are some of the businesses that are currently operating in Solomons. Going forward, if you go to the next slide, please, you will see some of the potential sectors that investors can move in. If you invest in Papua New Guinea, then Solomon is just next door. Why not extend to the Solomons? Yeah? And these are some of the sectors that you might want to consider investing in the mineral sector, agriculture, fisheries, and tourism. Tourism, we are not like Fiji or Vanuatu that has a big footprint there, but we believe there's a lot of potential in tourism in the Solomons as long as we have the right infrastructures in place. So if you are one of the investors that really want to invest in tourism, why not extend to the Solomons? And of course, renewable energy and manufacturing. This one, I just took it yesterday. So that's mine. The others, I don't own those photos.
Excellent. Just going back to mining, I think there is at least one more project that is, looking like a genuine medium-term viable proposition. So, it does seem like, I don't know if you'd like to just mention that, but that sort of illustrates to me that Goldridge isn't a one-off, and that, there's genuine scope for that to become a really significant industry.
Yes, there's one more investment that is currently they are applying for a mining license, which they will get it soon. It's quite a large-scale one, but they are focused more on nickel minerals. So that has the support of some of the bigger names in mining companies, which should also give a big boost to the economy.
Yeah, and of course, a lot of the PNG companies currently in the Solomons are really in the services sector. So, I mean, are there any other kind of service areas where you think, companies from PNG or Fiji or anywhere could add some value to the local economy?
Yeah, just yesterday I was talking to one of the stalls in there, and just learned that they are planning to come to the Solomons. So I encourage them to come as soon as possible, which they have informed me that they are coming end of this year, towards end of this year. So that is one of the investments coming from PNG. There is another one that is also working on the license. It's on the financial services, which should be in the country by, hopefully by towards the end of this year, if not early next year. There are other areas in the business services that's also available. One potential area that I'm looking at is security services. It's very nascent in the Solomons, but if there's any well-established security firms that can establish in the Solomons, I assure you, you will get a bigger market share in that, because we have more companies coming in. Not only that, but the donors too, they're looking for well-established security firms, as well as in Fiji.
Thank you. And just to finish off, as the governor of the Central Bank of the Solomons, what's your prediction for the economic outlook for the next, for let's say the medium term?
So in terms of our outlook, so this is a business expectation survey that we conducted recently, and the outlook we're looking at, so most are saying that the general conditions will be improved as in the first one. Business conditions, the majority says it will remain some kind of neutral, but the growth expectation and the inflation expectation is more positive on that end. So for this year, we are looking at, 2.4% medium term, on average of around 2.2%. So there's positive growth along. So if you go to the next slide, so I just included other neighboring countries to see how Solomon Islands fares with our neighbors. So growth is expected at an average of 2.2%, and inflation is projected to be at least around our desired level, which is around 5% or below. That will be our desired level. Some of the challenges that we see, of course, most of them, they are outside of our control, but we just try to manage the impact. The Ukraine war, of course, has a bigger impact on imported food and fuel prices. Climate change, of course, is one. And the other one is, of course, the famous geopolitics, which Solomon Islands has been popular in this regard. So the challenge I see here is we will focus on managing our relationship than focusing on growing the economy. That's the challenge here. At the same time, I look at it also as an opportunity. Opportunity in the sense that it deepens our engagement with our traditional partners. At the same time, it re-engages some of our partners to come back, which exactly happens. Yeah? So in a way, I look at it as an opportunity. But there are also other opportunities that I see there, which PNG can also invest. Like I said, the economy now is on the positive horizon growth, and we expect more investors coming in. In fact, there are more interest coming in lately in this regard. In the forestry sector, if you decide to come in the forestry sector, then that will be on a downstream processed land than the natural log.
Brilliant. Dr. Luke Forau, thank you very much for that. We really appreciate it. Leata, thank you for waiting patiently. I think the first thing we should do is just discuss your newly created role. I think you started about March or April. You'd had a 5-year stint at Pacific Trade and Invest in Sydney as, I think, Impact Investment Manager. And then you've taken on this role with the Queensland Government as their inaugural Pacific Trade Commissioner. Can you explain why that position was created and what you're tasked with achieving?
Okay, fantastic. Monichu o Getza, Talafalava. It's a real privilege to be here as the first ever Trade Commissioner for the Pacific. Thank you to the organisers for inviting and including us in this space. We don't take it lightly, and it really is exciting to be here for a couple of reasons, mainly because as Robert just described, it's the first time the Queensland government's really actively taken a position on saying, yes, we recognise for all the advantages that we have, close proximity, we already do a lot of trade and investment with the Pacific Islands, we're genuinely going to take a focus in the Pacific and have a look at how best we can help support that trade and investment between the two areas. Most of you know that Trade and Invest Queensland is the global agency for Queensland Government, and we have overseas commissioners based in key markets all over the world. My role is actually a bit unique because given the proximity and the areas that I look after across the Pacific Islands, which you all know is quite vast and wide, I am based here in Brisbane, which actually makes it a good opportunity because really we're working closely with our Queensland companies and understanding, as Kamal mentioned, the importance of working closely with private sector and what their aspirations are, but more importantly under our Pacific Trade Strategy that our Treasurer launched in November last year, is working really closely with the Pacific Islands and what their goals and aspirations are in partnership. And you know, now more than ever is the importance of working collaboratively together. Robert mentioned I did come from the Pacific Trade Invest Australia under the Forum Secretariat, and before that I was working across Samoa, Fiji and PNG in aviation and tourism. And you know, 15 years ago, the collaboration wasn't there. So I think we're in a really unique position on both sides because the appetite, the mindsets are changing on both sides. I mentioned our global network that we have overseas and the role that I have. The other commissioners are very much focused on their outbound. We understand and know that to have good relationships and to do good business, we really need that two-way partnership, and so my role really is that two-way. So with a real focus around the people-to-people and the values that we have, and from it as well as working and making the most of the commercial opportunities. And yesterday the Minister highlighted what their goals and aspirations are, and so we want to align and work closely together with each of the Pacific Island governments and with Investment Fiji, with Solomons, VAN and Samoa and so forth across. As you know, the Pacific Island is that vast and different, and there's no cookie cutter solution, right? You've got PNG over 10 million, you've got Niue that only has 1,000. So understanding how best, and more importantly, that intentional trade and investment. So I think it's an exciting time. The collaborations on both sides. When would you ever see David and Patrick sitting that closely together with New Zealand and Australia as well? So emphasising the people-to-people, the commercial business-to-business that will come from it, the intentional trade and investment, and the way you're moving forward and helping together in partnership that piece, supported and underpinned by a very proactive and positive government. So you do have federal, state and local. Last month I was up in Cairns, so we had all three tiers, all very pro-Pacific, and looking at that space, but understanding too that there are things in the realm of what government can do, and there are things that are outside of that realm. But that's, again, it takes us back to working closely with private sector and the allies and stakeholders that we have as well.
Fantastic. And specifically, what particular opportunities are you working on? What sectors do you think are particularly interesting at the moment? So if you could just maybe drill down a bit and tell us where the opportunities are in the short to medium term.
Yeah, for sure. I guess really we're focusing on the industries that we're already trading and investing in. So agriculture, the resources, the tourism, renewable energies, and also looking at that part of what is in the future. We're seeing technology change and shift in a big way. We've got software, we've got hard and soft infrastructure. So those are the areas that we're looking at the moment. But again, since starting in April, I've really actually just been going out and meeting with all the Pacific Islands to understand what their goals, aspirations, industries, where do they want to focus, what are their goals in the next 5-10 years, how does Queensland fit into that space, and at the same time meeting with our Queensland companies, because most of them too are starting, again, that mindset's changing from 15-20 years ago, saying our companies are looking at growth in these Pacific Islands. We're now looking at the supply chains and saying, how can we do this in country? How can we contribute more and get engaged more locally rather than just taking it all from here and whatnot? So working across that and the goals and aspirations in that piece.
Thank you very much. You are a Samoan national,
Yes.
so I think you're perfectly placed to give us also a little update on how things are going in Samoa. I know they were particularly closed during the COVID period, so how is that country bouncing back, and how, in this discussion about increased regional engagement, how could Samoa play its part in that?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess that with most of the Pacific Islands, it has taken some time post-COVID. It is bouncing back. Tourism has taken off again. We're quite fortunate to have daily flights out of Australia now. But unlike Fiji and SARS, we don't have our own international airlines there. There has been some challenges, but it has been bouncing back in terms of the tourism, the trade, the export. And again, across the Pacific are those opportunities of export, now more than ever seeing things like turmeric and ginger and things like that. So COVID was almost a blessing in disguise for Samoa because it forced people to go back to the lands, and they all started growing again and doing things like that. So being able to now have that consistent supply of some of those ingredients that Australia, New Zealand, the US were looking for value-added products has really helped diversify industries within that piece. I do want to say too, sports has helped them bounce back. There's been quite a few international matches, and I did want to mention part of our Pacific Trade Strategy is with sports. As we all know, sports does unite. We've got Brisbane 2032 that's coming up. 9 years may sound like far away, but as we know, it goes quite quickly. We recently co-hosted the Oceania Olympics National Committee meeting here in Brisbane, and really having a look at how best we can help support the Pacific Islands leading up to Paris, LA, and then Brisbane, and South Pacific Games in between. And really, and Kamal mentioned it before, we're really looking at our legacy and sustainability piece as well beyond the Games and helping support the Pacific in that area too. Again, in line with what the goals and aspirations that the Pacific have been asking us.
Yeah, fantastic. And just looking, I think with you've got quite a unique regional perspective, and you're working on it every day. Are there any particular trends or interesting developments within that entire Pacific Island region that are, maybe a kind of very that have really sprung up in the last year or two, that maybe in this post-COVID area that apply across the region?
Yeah, I guess probably not. This role really is new, and we are starting to have a look at it, but I will comment from previous experience and previous roles. We are seeing that trend of mindset starting to change. We're seeing more entrepreneurs coming through in the Pacific. We're seeing the support around them. We're seeing gender start shifting in a different way, and women starting to go back to traditional ways to enable and have new products to export. And at the same time, I touched on it before, is the agriculture. Everyone across the Pacific Island is having a look at how to incorporate technology into that space. So technology is coming to help as an enabler around innovative technologies across agriculture. And also the internet, the connectivity, and it's taken what the Pacific does to a whole nother level, not just through social media and people doing trading and bartering on marketplace and things like that. But if you told me 10 years ago that there'll be an Uber Eats in the Pacific Islands, I would have pretty much laughed. But it's happening, it's there. It's amazing. So we're seeing a lot of that, I think probably straight away in that piece. The other part too is here, and having a look at the diaspora that's overseas and the way they're contributing back home to the motherland. As Pacific Islanders, no matter where we go in the world, we still feel that sense of connection. Next generation are coming through, like remittances, we're going to do to the day we die, honestly, because we do. It's part of our culture. But we're now seeing that next generation going, how do we have long-term legacy sustainable? How do we help the motherland? So we're seeing a lot of them coming on board as impact investors, working in the groups that they are. We're seeing them coming and studying. There's a different skill set, education, mindset, as I mentioned before, in the organisations that they're in the Pacific and here. And so having a look at different ways that partnership's starting to change. The trend is growing and bigger and different as well.
All right, fantastic. And we've got some questions, thank you very much, from the audience, some very good ones. So I'm actually going to put the first one to you, because you did mention that Samoa has maybe more of a challenge with aviation, air links, than Fiji. So what's your take on the state of aviation in the region? How much of that is a limiting factor in terms of this, increased cooperation regionally?
Yeah. Where's Gary? Is Gary here from New Guinea? No, I think it's a really good question. Aviation is really vital and important. Because again, in my previous role there, we looked after 16 Pacific Islands. You're thinking about, that includes Palau, Marshall Islands, Cook Islands, PNG, and everything in between. Yeah. Everything's vast and wide, 50% of the water, Earth. And most of the Pacific are in tourism. And what underpins tourism is aviation. And then you look at the agricultural opportunities and the ability, a lot of the products at the time were the short shelf life. So there was cargo. And there are people doing that in a really good way. So our airline, or Nauru's airline, are doing that milk run right up across the Pacific Islands, predominantly in cargo. So aviation is very important. It underpins a lot of the industries across the Pacific Islands, with the tourism especially. And there is, I think, opportunity for our airlines to work more collaboratively together. And it's exciting to see that happening. So some of you may be familiar with the Airline South Pacific of Association. 15, 20 years ago, everyone was very much holding their, not that collaborative piece. But I was at their meeting in Fiji in May, and you had all the bigger guys, Fiji, New Guinea, Sols, and actually having a look at how do we work as a region to collaborate and work closely together, not only passengers, cargo, training, and it gives them the strength in that capacity that, sometimes aircraft are going to go down, you can get and lean and work together and closely around that space. So I think it's vital, it's exciting, it's happening, and I mentioned before, some of these things are within the realm of what government help is with the route development and working with the airports, but that other part, it's exciting to see the private sector and all those involved in that space working closely together themselves. And then we too will understand where the impediments or how best we can help support that grow for all positive outcomes on both sides.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Leata Alaimoana. That was fantastic. Thank you very much. I've just got one more question that I'm going to put quickly to our other two panelists before we wrap up. This is on spec, so obviously I hope you're comfortable with it. So basically it's about sources of direct foreign investment. So I'll start with Dr. Forau. I think the traditional investors are in Solomons, I think Australia, Papua New Guinea in the most recent years. I think it's been well documented that China is playing a growing role in the Solomons economy, and you alluded to it in your presentation. But are you seeing any other sources of interest or direct investment from maybe Asia or the Gulf states or Europe?
Yeah, currently most of the new expressions are mostly coming from Asian region, that's including China. Yep. There's been less from our traditional partners' interest, but one or two in there, like in the mineral sector, is an Australian company, of course, coming over, partner with a local company. Yeah. But on the other sectors, mainly in the forestry sector, is mainly from the Asian region. Yeah.
Thank you. Kamal, would you like to comment on that one?
Yeah, from what we did obviously with Investment Fiji was, we changed our role from a reactive to a proactive. So, for us, it has not become from any market, but we can look at any market around the world as long as you're targeting them and they make sense in terms of investing in your country. Is the investment sustainable and add value to your country? That's more important. So, obviously, traditional markets, Australia and New Zealand are there, but we've seen US investors now investing in Fiji well. We've got investors as far as from Middle East that are coming in investing in Fiji. We've got also new markets like South Korea, India that are investing in Fiji. So what we see so as part of our strategy, we've identified those markets, and we know these are the companies we're going to target, and also companies in the Pacific that we can target. So that's the strategy we're using to diversify our market and look at new sources of foreign direct investment.